First week of the UFL season is officially in the books. I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions from week one of the 2026 UFL season. Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Southern Sports Scene. I'm your host, as always, Lucas Hill. Thank you all for joining us. Do us a favor. Y'all hit the like, share, and subscribe down below. Turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, posting a video or posting a short here on the Southern Sports Scene. Every live show brought to you by our good friends over at FrostBuddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com, use that promo code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase. That's code SSS15 to get 15% off of your first purchase on all things tumblers, mugs, whatever you would like to put your beverages in. Also, thank you to our friends at Chike Nutrition. With 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and 1 gram of fat, you can get started with the best possible beginning to your day. Get a cup of coffee, and a very healthy cup of coffee, I might add. All right, let's kick it off. Louisville Kings and the Birmingham Stallions kicked off UFL action this past weekend. Defensive battle, man. And early on, I thought that Louisville's offense was moving the football down the field pretty good at times, but it doesn't help you when you have 3 turnovers. One of which was a complete crazy play where you have a tip ball. The receiver's got to come up with the catch, tips it again, and it's picked off. So in essence, I didn't think Jason Bean played a bad game. I thought he was efficient at times. I thought he got out of the pocket pretty well. The biggest thing, though, is he's got to be better with his communication with his receivers. I thought there was a lapse in that at times, and I think that is ultimately what helped Birmingham at the end of the day. Look, 1-0 for the A.J. McCarron era at Birmingham. Did I think it was a completely clean game at times for the Stallions offense? No. Do I think that there's a lot of hope for your running back room, which is extremely deep when you have guys like Ty Davis-Price, Anthony McFarland Jr., and Snoop Connor, who got the majority of the touches? I don't think even Snoop Connor started in this football game. I thought it was Anthony McFarland. I thought we were going to see a lot of him. It was a balanced attack in the backfield. I think you're going to get a lot of production from that group. But, guys, you've got to do better than averaging 3.2 yards a carry overall from your rushing department. You've got to be able to implement some quarterback run here. I know Matt Corral didn't get a whole lot going on the ground, just 3 catches or just 3 yards, simply because he got sacked a good bit. I mean, when you have – he didn't even get sacked, just didn't really have a whole lot else to go throughout the game, but was extremely efficient, 70% completion percentage. So that's all you can really ask for a guy that I think needed to get his feet back underneath him after what happened 2 years ago, coming back to Birmingham in 2025, having to fight for that job. That guy was, I think, the second or third quarterback on the depth chart. Did I think that he performed up to the expectations of what a lot of people expected him in the preseason last year? No. I think he's off to a better start. I think he's a very hyped quarterback for good reason. We've seen what he can do at a high level in the UFL, and we see the production that he puts on full display here. But he's got to be more consistent. That's the biggest thing that I can take away from that. I think that from the receiving end, Jaden Mickens, I predicted, would be a very, very good receiver this year. I think he was a guy that last year at DC, guys, I know that he's one of the oldest guys on the field. He's 31 years old, all likelihood. I don't know if he has a future back in the NFL. But again, I thought that he was very productive at times last year, averaged over 10 yards a catch. And then coming off his first game of the year, he picks up just over half of his production from last year in one game. I think that goes to show you that there's a lot of respect to the other receivers on this team for Birmingham. When we talk about guys like Justin Ross, who's coming back from an injury with Birmingham, he's been, or not even with Birmingham, Deion Kane, I should say, who's been the primary guy that people have been looking out for in Birmingham. He's been with the Stallions the last 4 years that he's been with this team. So everybody knows what he can bring. And I think a lot of people were keying in on Deion Kane, and they wanted to limit it. He only had 2 catches. The only problem is you have a guy like Jaden Mickens that can line up in the slot, and he can be a check down receiver that can pick up yards for you. That, I think, it was a really, really solid game for him. Deion Kane with just 5 targets. Justin Ross also with 5 targets. So the 2 Clemson guys combined for 10 targets, come up with 4 catches. But again, Jaden Mickens, a massive game for him. John Ross with 2 receptions for 23 yards. You got to get John Ross involved more in special teams wise. That's just my opinion, man. Because look, I don't think I don't believe when I look at a guy like him, he is going to be more of a special teams guru. Okay? You have to put him out in the return game. I'm just telling you, I get Jabari Barber and get Laviska Shenault had some good returns. Guys, to be quite honest with you, you got to put your fastest guy on the field, and that's John Ross. No question about it. For Louisville, obviously a lot happened during the week. You fire your offensive line coach. Jeff Jagodzinski will take over in that department. He's the co-O-line and tight ends coach for the Kings at this moment. I'm interested to see what happens with this offense. I really am. Because there was a lot of confusion on the sidelines. And in my opinion, I think if you're the Kings, look, I don't think that your offensive line was bad. I really don't think so. I think there was a lot of behind-the-scenes things that you and I don't know about, stuff that I have come out and said that there were some suspicious things, something that I've seen in comments, something that, I've heard from forum discussions. I think Chris Redman, it would not surprise me if he ends up taking back over the offensive play calling, because I'll be honest, I don't know if they like Steve Logan there. Just being honest with you. And the fact that Steve Logan, who's been – look, I like Steve. Crazy as it sounds, I really do. But I want to put more of an emphasis, go back to the play calling of a guy like Jeff Jagodzinski. I think Steve Logan will be fired in the middle of the season, whether it be this week or next week. Because if we're already seeing changes at this point in the season, after 1 week, and your offensive line coach is fired, what do you think is going to happen from here on out? I do believe that there's going to be more to come. I think Logan's going to be fired. Either Chris Redman or it's going to be Jeff Jagodzinski that will be calling plays from here on out. That's just my opinion. I think you need to change a pace at offensive coordinator. I think Bean would be more comfortable running that Jeff Jagodzinski offense. We've seen what he looks like at the pro level with the Buccaneers, with the Packers, with what he did with Matt Ryan with the Boston College Eagles. Is it perfect? No. Would it work in the UFL? I believe so. That's just my opinion, though. The St. Louis Battlehawks and the DC Defenders, the game that I think a lot of people were excited for. And it delivered. No question about it. The defending UFL champions going up against a St. Louis team that people have been asking so many questions about the Battlehawks over the last 2 years. Could they finally get over the hump in the UFL and win a UFL championship? Back-to-back years, they win the division in the XFL conference. They're this close to getting into the UFL championship. You lose to the Brahmas in 2024, and then you got blown out last year to DC. You have a new head coach in right now. It is the Ricky Proehl era has begun. Proehl is the St. Louis guy, former receivers coach in 2023. And I thought that offensively, I'm not going to say that there were a lot of great things that I saw. I was expecting guys like Jarvian Howard to be the feature back, which he should have been last year. I know that you and I had discussions about this. If you were watching this show last year, I know we had a lot of discussions about the Battlehawks rushing game. But I think the biggest question was what would go on with Manny Wilkins and with him going back to the big time, with Wilkins officially not being retained. Remember, this was a guy in Manny Wilkins that I think a lot of people expected to be in contention for a UFL MVP very early in the season last year. Brandon Silvers comes in. There was so many quarterback issues this past year with St. Louis. It was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Max Duggan gets hurt. Boom, guess what happens? In comes Brandon Silvers, the old guy. He's been around the spring league for God knows how long at this point. But I thought he came in, did okay, did his job, led drives, and I think he was a game manager when it's all said and done. Last year's runner-up, and in my opinion, should have been named the UFL MVP this past year. And I was surprised that he wasn't. And that's Jordan Tiamu. Rough game for him, man. No, nothing else can be said about that other than he had a rough outing. Last year had a great season. 17-4 touchdown to interception ratio in the UFL. Starts off this year with 2 picks. St. Louis came in much better from a defensive standpoint, and they got to him. 7 sacks this past weekend. You have the UFL Defensive Player of the Year in Pita Tuanapamenu that absolutely dominated in that game. They lined up and they ran the bitch down their throat, and they absolutely dominated from a defensive perspective. After that first quarter, everybody got comfortable and they took over the game. They gave St. Louis chances to score. That's all that mattered at the end of the day. When you hold DC to 3 of 10 on third down, you held them to 153 yards of total offense. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. They own the line of scrimmage. Could St. Louis have done a lot better in the red zone? Absolutely. They go 1 for 3 in the red zone. 1 for 3 in the red zone. You can't have that. You've got to be better. You've got to have, better results in that department, especially when your defense gives you a short field. And when you have all the momentum in the world. But from this perspective, I think DC got exposed. I think a lot of people had them ready to go. I think that there was a lot of people that was on the DC train ready to roll. Obviously, that didn't ensue. And you'd expect for St. Louis to take over from what they have from an offensive standpoint with Brandon Silvers at the helm. They struggled. There's nothing else I can really say about that other than they struggled with taking over off of turnovers. I don't know if they made a good decision with hiring A.J. Smith. We saw what happened in San Antonio. I don't think that a lot of people understand what happened in that situation. Right now, he's a quarterback's coach. Right now, you have to move on from him. Because right now, A.J. Smith is not in a good position with what he's doing out in Boulder and currently coaching spring football. You can't simultaneously do that shit at the same time. You can't. There's no way in hell that you can do that. You have to move on from him. You got to elevate a guy that does not currently have a college coaching job and get his ass calling plays. He can't be the primary play caller. And I know that there was obviously a power struggle with the Brahmas this past year with Wade Wilson. I'm glad that Peyton Pardee took over as the interim head coach then. But guys, AJ Smith does not need to be in that position right now if you are DC or if you're St. Louis. I'm just being honest with you. I don't see how it is working, and I don't understand why this is occurring. I just don't get how travel works with him going from St. Louis to Colorado, especially with spring football coming up. Let's move on over to the Dallas Renegades and the Houston Gamblers. First quarter, I thought that this was going to be a slugfest defensively. I didn't. First quarter, when you have a pick six by Sean Jones off of Nolan Henderson, boom, 6-0, just like that. And then after the first quarter, kudos to Austin Reed. Is my UFL offense player of the week for this week. 376 yards, 3 scores, 26 of 30, very efficient on the day. Hunter Deckers came in for Houston. He should be the starter going into next week. Much more dynamic, much comfortable, much better throwing the football compared to Nolan Henderson. Smart with the football, and I think that this should be the move that should be made if you are Hunter Deckers or if you are Iowa. Excuse me. If you are Houston, excuse me. Sorry, that was all over the place with that one. But if you're Dallas, from an offensive standpoint, I think right now you are the most complete offense in all of the UFL right now. After just 1 week, I understand that. But in a sense, you're playing a bad team. Houston, in my opinion, is the worst team in the UFL. They were that way last year. I don't think things are going to change. That's their legacy, and that's what they're going to have to live with. Is this Dallas Renegades team for real? That is going to have to be the damn question. Does Austin Reed remain the starter through the rest of the season? Or will it be Luis Perez, the Spring League MVP, that will be taken over? Again, that is a question that you and I have to have answered. So, does Luis Perez get in there? I don't know, with a new coach in state with Rick Neuheisel. I don't know what he wants to do from an offensive standpoint, but heck of a win for him in his first game. Houston's always had a problem, dude. I think it was bad that the fact that they got Kevin Sumlin. I think it was a lazy hire. I think you could have been much better with who you got, because offensively, Kevin Sumlin has been irrelevant for the last several years. I get that he's a former Gamblers coach. Guys, the landscape of the UFL has changed since 2022, and be honest with you, the competition level has gotten so much better. It's the bottom line. Shout out Dallas, though. Massive win for them. Offensive standpoint. From an offensive standpoint, they are the most complete team in the UFL right now. Tyler Vaughn's heck of a game. Greg Ward absolutely dominated with 3 catches for 93. More to come, man. But we'll see how real that Dallas is come this week. Finally, the Columbus Aviators and the Orlando Storm to finish out the game. I thought that this was a very good game. Fourth quarter, I know that Columbus got down early 23-6. Guys, they got into a point where it was a very close game, where Columbus had an opportunity to win the football game. They have the football in the last possession. They have an opportunity to win. They did. I thought Orlando, for the most part, though, in Anthony Beck's first year, I thought they did they did their job. Jack Plummer, 17 to 22 for 240. Joshon Corbin runs for 2 scores and 66 yards. Elijah Badger, what a damn game. 4 catches for $127. Absolutely dominating. Had the big 79-yard touchdown. My bad. Didn't even have a 79-yard touchdown. Just had the 79-yard reception. Columbus had so many more opportunities, man. You go 1 for 5 in the red zone, and you have a turnover. Do I think that Jalen McClendon had a bad game? No. I thought that he was efficient. I know that the one turnover is going to come back to haunt them. I thought he was good running the football, and I think he needs to do that a lot more. Anthony Beck is going to get that out of him, or Ted Ginn is going to get that out of him. But again, first game of the year, I thought that Columbus, for the most part, held their own. But we'll see what happens on the next couple weeks. I thought that he was decent with spreading the football around, getting it out to his playmakers. I thought Tate Martin had a really solid game. I want to see Juice Wells' numbers get elevated up pretty soon. But again, for it being the first game of the season for both of these franchises, first official game they've ever played, I thought that there's a lot of kinks that they still need to get worked out, and I think there's a lot more to expect from both of these teams. But let me know what you guys' thoughts are from the first week of UFL action. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys very soon.